Iranian lawmakers voting to implement the nuclear deal despite hardline attempts to derail the accord. This coming as Iranian state media reports that the country has begun testing new surface-to-surface long-range missiles, which may threaten the implementation of the nuclear pact, which just passed. Joining us right now is former intelligence operator and Fox News correspondent Lea Gabrielle. Lea, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Your observations on Iran firing these missiles when we know they were supposed to have no activity in that regard as part of this nuclear deal just signed in July.
Right, and it's questionable, whether or not this is illegal or illegal based on the deal, because of course, are they testing their ballistic missile capability or their warhead capability? What is it? But what we saw is a missile launch. They like to show on Iranian state TV how great their missiles are and show these launches. But when I watch something like this, I watch it from the perspective of an intelligence officer who says, okay, so where does this thing actually land? Because this missile called the IMED, it's supposedly an improvement of the Shahab 3, which is basically a copy of a North Korean design. That was accurate to within about 8,000 feet, 50% of the time, compared to maybe, something that one of our missiles that might be accurate to less than 50 feet, probably much better than that. I'm just not sure what would be classified and what wouldn't be for our missiles. But you just have to keep in mind that, we don't know what their claims are versus how accurate these actually are, and they're not showing where they land.
I mean, what I find important about this is the broader message about our relations with the Iranians after this deal. Also yesterday, we have the Iranians convicting a Washington Post reporter of espionage.
Good question.
I mean, it seems like they're really poking us in the eye, and they're taking an American journalist and putting him behind bars. What does that tell us about the goodwill that we have?
Those are great points, but I think anyone who thought that there was any goodwill to be achieved from an Iranian nuclear deal was naive, because Iran's hardliners, the Ayatollah, all the hardliners, they were showing opposition to the deal in the first place because they wanted to show their opposition to anything having to do with working with America. So this rhetoric is really nothing new. It does not surprise me that they're moving on with developing their missile technology, their weapons technology, convicting Americans who are innocent of crimes. That's just nothing new in Iran. That's the same old stuff that we've been seeing for a long time.
And then, of course, they're working together with the Russians in Syria. So, and that turns around right after the deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, what we have to be concerned about in this region, and you mentioned the Russians in Syria, this is a conglomerate problem that is growing in terms of who's allying with who. I think, if you want to turn to Russia, the thing that's really jumping out with me is what we're hearing from Putin. And he's basically saying that he's legitimately there because he's supporting the Syrian government. He's saying, we're in that country basically on invitation by their sovereign government, because there's a major difference of opinions between the United States and our coalition in Russia in terms of what needs to happen in Syria, whether or not there needs to be a political transition before or after we deal with ISIS, right? Putin says we have to make that political decision or political transition after, because ultimately what he wants to do is prop up his military assets in the region, aka his naval base at Tartus.
Lea, do you think, though, if Iran continues to make waves and essentially fly us the bird, give us the finger, are we prepared to take action and get in the way of not lifting these sanctions and do something about the deal that we just inked?
Well, I think it really depends on what you mean by taking action, because it's very easy for us to sit around and talk in these circles in very general terms, from the 20,000-foot perspective about what we could do versus being in an intelligence organization and having the granularity and the understanding of what's really going on there. There is the snapback option of the sanctions, but I think what this administration said and has been saying is that we need to have international cooperation in order to make those sanctions really effective. Countries in that region, other countries in Europe, were wanting to do business with Iran. They wanted to be able to move forward. So right now what we have to do is kind of wait and see what Iran does and then assess from there. But are we willing to take action? Really depends on what kind of action you're talking about.
And the Supreme Leader, Khomeini, is constantly tweeting. I actually started following him yesterday just to see what he's talking about. And he says, his latest tweet, "Our nation ideologically believes in religion, family, independence, and Islamic democracy. The other side tries to transform these beliefs."
Right. Lots of rhetoric, lots of propaganda. You know, that this is kind of their message that they continue with. But in Iran, you have kind of the more moderate people, and then you have the really conservative hardliners, and there's this ongoing argument between them.
That's softer than death to America, which is what you often hear.
Yeah, most of that tweet you could have heard out of an American politician, except for the Islamic part. But we believe in religion and family and independence. That's, you know, I could see that in the Republican debate.
But we see what their actions are. We see what their actions are. So it's sort of, you know.
Right.
Doesn't add up. Leah, good stuff. Thank you very much. Good to have your insights.